All right, we're back with another episode of the Spotlight. Here we got Coach Makepeace, the swim and dive coach here at the University of Findlay. I asked my guests to talk a little bit about themselves, let the audience know what you got going on, new, old, or anything.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I've been the head coach here at the university for, I think this is my 11th year. It's hard to remember that sometimes, but I've been here for 11 years. And um, yeah, I mean, we just came off of our conference championship, bringing back both titles. And so that was, a big thrill this past weekend. And we've got our NCAA championships coming up. So we're kind of preparing for that, waiting to see who's going to get qualified for that. So, we're pretty excited to see where things line up with that. So that's kind of what we got going on right now and in the upcoming future. But we've had a long season.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of our athletes are probably happy that it's over just because it is so long. But we're excited about the next few weeks before our NCAA meet.
Okay, you said 11 years you've been here. And you swimmed yourself when you were younger?
I did.
How did you get into swimming, and like where did it start for you?
So I was one of those. I mean, you guys are around athletes all the time, and so you know what people are like. I was really competitive as a kid, and so I played a lot of ball sports growing up. My brother is actually a hemophiliac, so it means that he has a hard time clotting his blood. So like back then, technology and medical advancement didn't really help. So he got into swimming, and because he got into swimming, he's my older brother. I kind of got forced into it, but my parents recognized that as a crazy competitive person, I needed something that was not like basketball or baseball. I needed something that was going to be like individual, and so they put me in a pool, and I was really good at it because you get things for winning heats or you get things for winning an event.
Yeah.
And so like I thought ribbons were the things to get, and it was trophies and medals. And so I got into swimming because my family swam, because my brother, and then it kind of perpetuated from there where I swam in high school, made all state, and then when I was I swam in college at Minnesota State University. It kind of just grew from that. It was not my first choice. Right. I did not love swimming as a kid. It was actually like my last choice.
Yeah.
But here I am now. So kind of everybody's got their own story.
Yeah. So when you went to college and you throughout your career and you were getting at the end of it, what made you think like I want to start coaching, or like what got you into coaching?
So I coached a little bit of high school swimming when I was in college, and a little bit of club when I was in college. But I never thought like, hey, I'm going to get into coaching. That's like my career. By the time that I was a junior or senior, I had a lot of guys on my team who were making NCAAs and making a huge impact for our team there. And I just was not at that level. And so I kind of understood that I was more of like a leader, very vocal and worked hard and was dedicated to things. But I think that I recognized at that stage when I was probably a senior that I was either going to go into teaching or something along that path. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I graduated, but my head coach said that I was going to help him coach.
Right.
And so that kind of thrust me into that. And then I became a graduate assistant, and worked from there. So it was kind of thrust upon me. Like It was not a choice. But it's I think a lot of coaches will say like, it's not really your choice. It's kind of a calling.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And ever since it's kind of been, how I've kind of associated who I am.
Oh, okay. So when you start off at high school, was it back in your hometown or was it where you went to college?
Yeah, it was back in my hometown. And so they just needed some help, and I was willing to do that. And then, when I was in college, that was far away. It was like an hour and a half, not like far. But I helped coach a club team when I was in my first year as a student athlete. And, from there, I more swimming and athletics and classes took up my time. So I kind of lost that. But by the time that I was a senior, the itch kind of got into it. By the time that I was done swimming and my career was over, my coach brought me down to NCAAs as kind of just an assistant coach rather than an athlete. And so I kind of helped out with a lot of stuff. You get to see behind the scenes after you're not an athlete.
Right.
And you get to see some of the cool stuff that they do. And I had no responsibility. So like I just got to enjoy myself, not realizing like how much more is involved with like the day-to-day operation.
Right. So what brought you to Findlay? Like what opened up that opportunity for you?
So that's kind of it's relatively sad. So a lot of men's programs for swimming and diving get cut. They get eliminated when a, a school will go through some budget cuts, or if there's any kind of Title IX issues that need to be resolved administratively. It's part of athletics as a whole. And so what happened was I was in my second year as a graduate assistant, and I was actually only planning to be there for 2 years, but my head coach wanted me to stay there for a third year. I basically took one class my third year as a GA, and during that time, they had eliminated our men's program.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the end of line for me. Like, I realized that there's really no avenue to stay where I was, because like we were trying to facilitate a new position, and when that position just kind of dissolved because like chaos came in, I started looking for jobs. And when I saw Findlay pop up, I mean, Minnesota is pretty far from Ohio. Didn't have any attachments, didn't have anything that I had to worry about. I was a 24-year-old thinking the world would be at my 25, whatever I was then, thinking that I just may as well go somewhere. It doesn't matter where.
Right.
And so they actually called me, like actually Brandy Larita, I don't know what she's considered nowadays, but she was our former athletic director. At the time, she was an assistant athletic director. She was the person who actually kind of was at the head of the process.
Right.
So she's a large part of why I'm here, as well as when I came out here on a visit for my interview, it just felt very like home. It felt kind of like most people will feel why they're at Findlay is not because of the amazing facilities or whatever else their reasons are. Henderson's Dining Hall. It's like it's just the way it made me feel, and they actually wanted to hire me, which was shocking too. So that's kind of how I got here. Like, I didn't expect them to come calling. I didn't expect to get an interview. I didn't expect to get hired.
Right.
But here I am now,
Yeah. So before you came, before you got the head coach spot, how was Findlay swim program before you?
Floundering would be a nice way of putting it. I knew that they actually had people at nationals, because when we were at our NCAA championships one year, I remember seeing the cap.
Yeah.
And like you see the logo of the team that they're at. So I saw that, but I didn't realize what I was walking into until I walked into it. And at the time, we had 6 guys in the team.
Yeah.
And now we'll have like 6 qualify for nationals. So it's a far cry from that. And we think we had like 10 women.
Yeah.
So it was a small team, with an opportunity for a lot of growth. But they had kind of fallen on hard times is the best way to describe it.
Right. So when you first got here, what was the process for you to, like, you sat down with yourself and like, this is what I got to do to change the program around? Like, when did you have that conversation? When did you actually start working on it?
I think probably when I was first hired, I was super ambitious. Not saying I'm not ambitious now, but like my ambition then was basically just to get this thing back on track. And so I tried calling a whole bunch. It was April, at the end of April, early May, and I tried calling a bunch of still seniors in high school to see if they were still interested in coming to school. Well, they weren't. So like I was kind of having to switch gears, and I honestly just spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to get out of the program, what I wanted it to be, what kind of culture I wanted to create. And so the biggest thing on my docket, what to do, honestly, was like I had to get numbers. I had to get bodies in the door, because when you have a small team, you're just going to get whipped a lot. And I don't want that. So I was on the phone pretty much every day, multiple times. And I think my first year we got like 21 new people. Like we doubled the roster size the first year. So my first thought was like, I got to get bodies. Second thought was like, I wish that half of them will be competitive in our conference. And that was kind of the case. I mean, I got lucky.
Right. So when that happened, and how many years did it take for you to start winning every year, or like actually catching the wind and everybody is buying into the program? And
that took a while. Like that took a lot longer than I was hoping for. That's for sure. I think by about year 5 is when I kind of started to feel as though we were really off and running. Like we were recruiting a lot better, a better talent. They were a lot more interested. Like people fill out recruiting profiles, we got a lot more of people who actually were really competitive, and a competitive not only, for our program, but for our conference, and then competitive for the national, spotlight. And so that took about 5 years. And the biggest thing, honestly, was, and I feel bad for a lot of the people that were in the first few years, because it's not their fault. But when you're building something, there's a lot of people who help set that foundation.
Right.
And like those people set the foundation, and they didn't get to see like the fruits of all their labor.
Right.
Now people get to see it and like they get to feel it. And that's unfortunate for those first few classes, but they're the ones who really set the table.
Right.
And so it took about 5 years. Then when we moved from the GLIAC into the GMAC, a lot of stuff shifted because you had a lot more people who were getting opportunities that didn't get them before.
Right.
And so they were able to kind of reach their potential more. And I think that really broadened the horizon for what our teams were capable of.
Right. And when you go into conference championships or after that nationals, do you feel a different confidence with your team going into that? Like, does it feel way more different than it felt when at the like year 6 when you first started to see the change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. What happens with winning is you start to really, that kind of breeds confidence on its own. Like everybody wants to win, but when you start to win over and over, it's no different than a basketball team where they, if they lose 11 games and then the next year they win 4, and then the culture kind of sets that whole, like, there's a new standard.
Right.
And I think that that's the biggest thing that we've realized, that the standard being set is no longer like, there's no complacency. Like if you want to be competitive on our team, you better be competitive in practice.
Right.
And so if you want to be competitive in practice, it's like the idea of steel sharpening steels. Like every time that they bang swords together, it's going to get sharper. And so they're the ones who really kind of create that culture, the ones who've now been here and haven't experienced and that losing or not winning, I should say. But yeah, I mean, the way that they see it now, it's like we walk on our pool deck, and other teams they're not very pleased to see our program like walk in the door, because they know what's coming, and it's not going to be beneficial for them. It's going to be pretty beneficial for us.
Right.
And so when we go to NCAAs, we got a bunch of people, men and women now, that they're hunters. They're the ones who want to go out there and crush some skulls, essentially, because that's kind of the attitude and mentality they've taken. Yeah. And that's taken a long time to build, but it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Cause that's like, as I'm on a football team, like that's our goal as well, to win as much. But when you hear like, cause there's a lot of winning programs, but the swim team they win the most out of everybody. But I feel like y'all don't get as much publicity. You know what I mean? Like a lot more people should know that our swim team has won 6 years in a row. Yeah, a lot more people should know that, and I'm pretty sure in the swim world, a lot of people know, because you get a lot of recruits, people interested, and they trying to come win. But that's really why main reason I wanted to have you on here, because it's greatness, actually, to people, sending people to conference, winning conference year after year, sending people to nationals, and having all Americans. That's just like great resume to have as a coach. And off of that, like, do you see yourself like trying to go be a professional coach ever?
So, like the next steps for like someone in my position, honestly, like I'm moving on to like a Division I program, if that was the case, right? So like we have our progression, kind of like, when Coach Keys left to go to Ohio State, like that's the next part of somebody's progression professionally. There are professional opportunities like that, but I think Division I, like they kind of balance each other out in a lot of ways. Like a lot of Division I programs will have what we'll call pro teams as well, because it's cheap to have them at the same place. Right. I don't know. Like I don't always think about that. Like I'm pretty stayed in the moment. That those things will probably come up after the season's over, just like they kind of always do, because opportunities arise, a lot more now for me than they did in the past. Right. So it's one of those things that like I'll only take that one step at a time. But for now, I got to focus on our squad as we kind of head towards nationals, and then after that, who knows?
Right. And so, like you said, iron sharpens iron in practice, and they gotta go at it. So is practice like? Because I never been to a swim
Sure.
practice. Is practice for like swimmers? Like, are you coaching them like why they're swimming, or is it like how does that go as far as working on
Yeah, man.
things that need to be fixed?
It's so weird. Swimming's like you most. So I grew up playing ball sports too, and like ball sports are so fun.
Yeah,
Like they're so easy too compared to like watching somebody swim. And so in the swimming world, you don't have a whole lot of time to coach people up like you would do, honestly for most sports probably besides cross country.
right,
Um, and so when they get done doing something in practice, that's when you get the chance to like kind of modify what they're doing or talk about things that they can improve. Um, so I mean, throughout practice, you're basically designing a practice just like any coach on campus would,
mm,
to challenge them in a very very different way than most people are accustomed to. So it's very very they're very high intensity and doing a lot of endurance stuff that when you get the chance to kind of correct technique and stuff and stuff like that, those are the moments that you take the time to do it. And so basically they're practicing to compete, like they're going to practice like they compete. So
right,
everything that they're going to do throughout a practice day is typically going to be something that will benefit them while they race,
right,
and get them comfortable doing so. So yeah, feedback is really important. It's not always as easy as it we hope it to be, just because we only have a handful of coaches on deck and there's a lot of people on our team.
right.
But we spend a lot of time trying to improve techniques, work on technical components of racing. So the times that they're being athletes, the way I describe it is because like swimmers aren't really athletes. The only time that they're super athletic is when they're jumping off the block to do a start,
Mm,
and then when they're pushing off a wall to be explosive, because
right.
the rest of it is swimming. It's not like swimming's not really athletics in
Yeah.
that way.
There's a lot of people who can't do swimming though. I can like what I like. Somebody asked if I could swim. I could swim to survive.
Yeah.
Like, but I can't swim against the swimmers in there. I lose bad. But is there ever a time where you want to get back in the water? And do you ever feel like that, or is that just in the past?
So again, this goes back to like the ball sport thing. Like I love talking to other coaches of other sports. They're just like, yeah, so you ever get in the water with them? I was like, no, absolutely not, because I don't want to embarrass myself. Because it's not as easy. It's honestly, it's like not as easy as just picking up a football and throwing it, or picking up a basketball and shooting it, or
Yeah.
getting your glove on and throwing a baseball around. Like it's really really mentally challenging to put your suit back on and look at the cold water, because that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
cold, and go like, I'm gonna get back in today. Like it takes a lot of strong will to do that. And
Mm.
honestly, I'm retired as a swimmer, and so I
Yeah.
think that saying in retirement, it's in my best interest.
Yeah. Like you just said, like the water's cold, and stuff like that. How do you warm up at like a swim meet? Like how do y'all go about that?
Yeah, that's the thing that you get to see every 4 years is the Olympics, right? And
Mhm.
like on the Olympics, it looks so easy. Like these people just kind of like dive in and they swim and they
Yeah.
race, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, just like any sport. And so for them to be able to get warmed up, like they have to most of the time get back in the pool where it's cold
Yeah.
and try to get their heart rates up, so that way they're able to kind of get ready to go and their muscles are really active. And so it's a lot different than land sports, where you don't have to worry about that as much. It's probably more like when it's a cold weather game or like a cold
Yeah.
outdoor experience for somebody, because then you have to figure out ways to get your body warmed up. It's kind of like that, but then you have to dry off and put all this clothing back on to stay warm. And I think that's the thing. Again, like we don't get to see that.
Right.
When you watch the Olympics, you just get to see these people go out and perform. So there's that. And the second thing that nobody knows about is like those suits that people wear at the Olympics,
Mhm.
like how they look like, oh, they're just on. Those take a long time to put on.
Oh, okay.
And so these people sit in the locker room for like 45 minutes and they're trying to put these on. And it's like inch by inch getting up on their skin until
Right.
it's finally on. And so like there's pains that nobody understands and sees, but
Mhm.
those are the things that help get them warm. Like honestly, putting their suit on gets their heart rate up, but getting back in the water and kind of,
Yeah.
get your muscles active. It's like no other sport.
Yeah.
It's the getting in the water, getting out. That's the thing that is trying.
So do y'all get to do like swim laps or like practice like going back and forth like before the meet, like pre-meet or anything like that, or y'all gotta just get straight to it?
Yeah, we have a warm up period where there's like, it depends on how early the facility opens. Typically, it's like 2 hours. Most people don't get in that early because they don't want to get cold.
Yeah.
So they'll probably get in, about an hour before a meet starts. And so it just depends on the size of the pool. Like our pool for conference is pretty big. They got a lot of warm up area. But if you go to the biggest pools in the nation, which we're going to for NCAA's, like they've got 3 different pools that you can get in and warm up. And so there's a lot of space and everything like that. But yeah, it's typically about 2 hours before a meet. People will get there, start loosening up. And I would say about most people would be an hour to an hour and a half before a meet starts.
Oh, okay. So where's NCAA's and how many people off the team are going this year?
So NCAA's are at IUPUI in Indianapolis. It's
Okay.
like probably one of the best facilities in the nation, if not like one of the best in the world. So it's pretty great that we're able to go there. Right now we've got, I think, solidly qualified. We probably have 5 men, and we've got 3 that are on the bubble. So we'll go to a meet this weekend to see if we can improve times just a bit to get those people qualified in. We got 2 ladies that are qualified for sure. Probably like 4 that are right on the bubble as well. So we're trying to get those people to get that final push to get into the meet. And then we've got a handful of people that can swim on relays. So you're able to bring people that the NCAA does not pay for, but they'll certainly let you bring them. And so, it's no different than like an 8th man on a basketball bench. Like they're important to the team.
Yeah.
They can obviously help win a national championship in some capacity. So we'll bring a handful of people for relays just to kind of, spread out the competition. But we're hoping that we'll have, a pretty big travel party to bring home some hardware. So it's exciting, but we got to get there after Saturday to see who's actually going to get in the meet.
Oh, that's good. That's good. When recruiting athletes from out of high school or even transfer portal, do y'all do the swimming recruit from transfers as well?
We do.
Okay, so when recruiting out of high school or a transfer portal, what are you looking for in an athlete other than them being good swimmers?
That's a good question, because I think what's important for us first and foremost is team culture. So getting, we have a handful of, I would say we have, about 10 to 12 international athletes on our team. So that's the trickier part, is you're having people who have English as a second language generally. So recruiting them it's actually really easy, because like they want to come to the United States. They didn't know that they wanted to come to Findlay, Ohio, but they'll show up and they'll figure it out. But we're trying to basically add to our team culture, which again, we're talking about like trying to have greatness to it, having success, but being a pretty well-balanced person. So we don't want anybody on the team to come in and be, completely suck away the energy that we have. So, we try to keep it so that way people are good students, good athletes, but like good people. And that's not always easy, but that's why we bring them on campus to check out, how well of a fit they're going to be.
Yeah.
We have them spend a lot of time with our team, because our team will actually give us feedback like, hey, this person's probably not going to really like their time here, or like this person's not really interested. They're just here to kind of be in the visit. So like we get a good vibe from them on their visit, but also what our feedback from our team is.